Is this going to be the technique that completely changes throwing? Or is it going to be completely worthless? We're going to find out, and we're going to start right now. So this is a technique that we've seen on YouTube when we've seen East German throwers back in the 50s and 60s at the Olympics. So this is something that is relatively old, but it has had some different flashes in the pan where we've seen someone like Eric Cadee use this to a point. Julian Ruck had very good success with this after he left Texas Tech and went to UCLA. This is also a shot technique that we've seen a couple high school kids play around with, but no one's ever really done this for a very long period of time. I started to wonder, how can we actually see if this has any long-term implication to throwing further in the shot? And does it actually help the shot travel a longer distance? And then if we can think about that, if the shot can travel a longer distance, that gives us more time to accelerate the implement. So in theory, if we can accelerate the implement over a longer distance, based off of our 7-foot circle, that's going to help us get to a higher maximum output or a higher maximum velocity. I've also been shown this movement by a really great close friend of mine who's also had some really good connections to some biomechanists. He's given me some inside stories here on other individuals who've also played around with it, but these individuals didn't really want to risk their career when they had already thrown pretty far with the traditional technique that we see today with the rotation. So I have an 11-year-old son who also has thrown relatively far for a young child. And I decided he's going to be my guinea pig with this, along with one of our other in-house throwers here at Garage Strength. So one of the things that I'm pretty well known for is experimenting on my athletes with different exercises, different rep schemes, different layouts of our programming. And this is just one of those other experiments because I want to see, how does Lincoln, my 11-year-old son, feel about this after 2 or 3 years? And do we see that this is actually something that could really progress him long term? And now I want to reveal and show you guys what that technique is going to be. So when you watch someone like Julian Ruck, far as I can tell, did not do a heel turn out of the back of the circle. What I want to see, okay, so my son's actually left-handed, I'm not left-handed, is I want to see someone starting this way. Okay, and we should come up with a really unique name for this. So maybe by the time this video is released, we'll have a cool name. I want to see the athlete facing this way. And as they do a wind, they're going to do a pretty traditional wind. Okay, so we want to load that right foot. And then as they come out of that wind, we want to see this heel turn. So we want to see a little bit of a heel turn. Now, that heel turn, okay, as they come out, is going to enable them to rotate a little bit easier so that as they push, okay, so they're here, heel, gets here, they push long. If I'm facing this position, okay, so I'm not in a traditional throw, a traditional Ryan Krauser, Joe Kovacs technique, this would be 180 here, okay? 180 from this position would be directly in line with the camera. So I'm really getting to about 270. So that's where it gets a little bit interesting, okay? So we're gonna see heel turn, get to this point, push. And we want to push hard from that right side and get that right foot high just prior to 270, okay? So if I'm throwing in a traditional technique, I want my right leg lengthened and high around 180, okay? Again, this would be 180 right here. In this technique, it's going to be about 270 relative to where we're starting. That's going to help us then accelerate a little bit earlier relative to the actual movement pattern. And then we were going to get into that middle position. So the unique start is here. Okay, so it's a little bit more distance traveled compared to here. It's almost like taking Tom Walsh and moving him to the center, or Stipe Zunic, moving them to the center a little bit more. We're here, heel turn, boom, get here, push high. We want to get this right leg here, sweep here, and now we're back to square one where we want to talk about what Joe Kovacs does, what Ryan Krauser does in the middle. Okay, now we're here coming off of that left leg. We want to wrap with this left arm level, left arm across, ground with that left arm early, and then we're back to this position going. Some of the big interesting points here, and I'm going to go back and refresh over that, but some of the interesting things is that when Lincoln, my 11-year-old son, started to do this, he'd already thrown 35 feet with a 3K shot from a traditional technique. As we started to experiment, some of the things that he noticed, and he's pretty well in tune with his body, is he would blast out of the front. or he would fall backwards. When his right leg, he's left-handed, would ground, he would sort of fall off to the side or blast forward. He wasn't really controlling himself that well. One, because it was a new foreign movement, but two, I think he was actually accelerating a little bit higher than he had previously done with the traditional movement pattern. So that's where I started to get a little bit more interesting, and that's when I conned Mason Woods into actually executing this as well, as saying, hey, this might be something that gets you over 15, 50, 16 meters. Let's play around with it and see if this can help you have a little bit more speed at the front. Going back over this, we want to set with a good traditional wind, and then as we load, heel turn. And we want, don't go extended here, okay? Heel, okay? Heel, stay bent, turn, push hard. Now we're gonna get on the ball of our feet, get to this position around 270 with that dorsiflex right foot, cut, wrap, level. Now we're back to a traditional throwing position and back to smashing that throw. So the difference is that we're adding in about 90 degrees of movement. We're putting in that heel turn. We're getting a little bit more aggressive with our right leg earlier in the throw, and then that's gonna set us up for that rest of that movement. The heel turn helps us rotate a little bit better. So some of the stuff that I'm thinking about moving forward when I'm sharing this with you guys is looking at what Reese Hoffa did out of the back. If we can understand what Reese did and how he threw so consistently, how many hundreds of throws over 21 meters did he have? If we can take that as a lesson and then look at what Joe and Ryan are doing currently out of the back to the middle to the front, and then take a little bit more of the biomechanist information to the start of the throw, and we can sort of compile this. I think this is what we can do to really try to further the sport. That's why I'm trying to think through this, is what is this going to offer the throwing world? It's an experiment that could, in theory, help push someone like Ryan or Joe. Ideally, we could get to the point where we can actually push their distances, because they're absolutely unbelievably good. And for us to get to that point, we need to be able to play around with these other movements. We need to play around with these other exercises and these other schemes that we try to come up with to see how successful they are, or also know that they might not be that successful. So play around with this, see what you think, comment down below. Is this something that you think you could benefit from? If you guys need help with your programming, head over to throwsuniversity.com. You can pick up a program today to help you drop some bombs. Until next time, peace.